This video is going to explain how to form C clauses in French. C clauses, higher level phrases that show the ability to talk in two different tenses, past and future reference, so they're really handy things to do. And if you're after a grade 7, 8 or 9, these are something that you can include in order to hit that particular target or goal. C means if in French. That's the very basic. C clauses are if sentences. So in English, an example would be, if I was rich, I would visit New York. You'll notice it references the past, if I was rich, and it also references the future, I would visit. Now in French, there's very specific tenses that you need to use in order to create an if clause, a C clause, as we have here. The tenses in French, in the first part, it would be the imperfect. If I were rich. And then in the second part would be the conditional. You might have recognised the would, and you know the would is the conditional tense. I would visit. So those are the things that you're going to need to be able to use in order to form one of these higher level phrases. There's actually a formula that would be really useful to note down. C plus the imperfect plus the conditional. If I was rich, I would visit the south of France. Si j'étais riche, je visiterais le sud de la France. You can notice I've colour-coded both of these sentences so you can follow what's being used where. So your question is, do I know how to form the imperfect tense? Do I know how to form the conditional tense? The imperfect tense, you take the new form in the present tense, for example, nous jouons. You get rid of the new, and you also get rid of the ONS. And then all you need to do is to add the correct ending. The endings are listed below. AIS, AIS, AIT, all pronounced A. IONS, ION, IEZ, IE, and then AIENT, which looks completely weird, but again is just pronounced A. So if we were to add those onto JOU, you've got below, je jouais, I used to play, il jouait, he used to play, and il jouait, they used to play. The spelling's different, but the sound on the verb is the same. What's great about the imperfect is there's only one irregular, and you guys already know it. That irregular is être, to be, and you know how to say it was. C'était. E-T, A-I-T. AIT, as you can see, is the ending for he, she, one, and it. So that's why it's spelt like that. C'était, it was. The conditional tense on the right-hand side in purple is that tense to say what things would be like, when you would do something. And that one's quite simple to form for regular verbs. You take the infinitive, like jouer, or finir, or vendre, and you add the correct ending. In this tense, you do not need to take anything off before you add your ending. The endings, as you'll notice, are exactly the same as for the imperfect. So the only difference here is that you're adding to the infinitive instead of having taken something off beforehand. You see below, je jouerai, I would play, elle jouerait, she would play, and il jouerait, they would play. The only exception here for these regular verbs is for vendre. For the RE verbs, you've got to take off the E before you add your ending. So je vendrai, VNDR, AIS, I would sell. Here's some examples to show you them in practice. Si je gagnais le loto, it's AIS because it's je. We've taken off the ONS from the form in the present tense, so je gagnais le loto, if I won the lottery. And then in the second column, the conditional, je voyagerai autour du monde, I would travel around the world. And it's AIS, the same ending, but we've added this onto the infinitive. I would travel around the world. The second sentence, si mon père gagnait le loto, AIT, because we're talking about your dad, who's just like saying he. So if my dad won the lottery, il achèterait une voiture chère et sportive. AIT again, same ending, but this time added onto the infinitive. He would buy an expensive and sporty car. And then at the very end, si mes sœurs gagnaient le loto, If my sisters won the lottery, A-I-E-N-T, the A sound there, because mes sœurs is just like saying they. Elles gaspilleraient, pardon, tout l'argent. They would waste all the money. A-I-E-N-T, same ending, but this time added onto the infinitive gaspiller, to waste. They would waste all the money. There are irregulars in the conditional as mentioned, and instead of adding those endings onto the infinitive, you've got to add them onto what we call a stem. So a stem is something that's used in place of the infinitive verb. And I've put a little list of them, the most common ones, in this table below. So être, to be, you use ser, you ser, to add your endings onto. So je serais, AIS, I would be. These tables are the most common ones that you would see or that you would use. You'll be able to see lots of interesting things with them. And this is what they would look like. Je serais, I would be. Il aurait, he would have. Nous ferions, we would do. Il deviendrait, they would become. Je pourrais, I would be able to. Elle devrait, she should. Nous voudrions, we would like to or we want to. And il saurait, they would know. So just to remind us, our if clauses, our C clauses are formed by following a formula. C plus the imperfect plus the conditional. We're going to put that to use in just a moment. So you've made some notes, you've read through, you've had a little think about these if clauses as you've been watching the video. Now it's time for you to test yourself. Below, I've put 5 sentences in English and I've colour-coded the tenses so that you only really have to think about the verbs here. You have to think how they're going to form, how they're going to look, what endings, do I have to take anything off, follow your notes, and I'm sure you'll be fine. So pause the video now, or in just a second, and try and write these 5 sentences in French underneath your notes. It doesn't matter if you've got to go back to the video, you've got to go back to earlier slides to look for information, to look for extra things. That's what these videos are there for. On the right hand side, underneath the conditional, to make it slightly easier for you, I've put the ends of the sentences together in a list. It's just then for you to think, how am I going to form this tense? Do I need to take anything off? Do I need to add anything on? The rest of the vocabulary in black in that box just stays exactly the same. I have been really mean and included in sentence 4 a negative. So a negative is like saying not, j'aime, and je n'aime pas. So you're going to have to think, where's my ne and my pas going to go in this sentence? And finally, number 5, I've included the action happening to somebody, essentially there being what we call a direct object. And I've made some notes at the bottom of that table just to guide you on how that would look. But don't get hung up if that's the one part of the sentence you get wrong. It's just to show you how it works. Pause the video now, and once you've done, the next slide will show you the answers. Here you go. Here's all the answers. I hope you got most of them right. If you followed the notes, I'm pretty sure you got the majority of them, if not everything, correct here. These two tenses, these sentences used together are higher level. So it's not easy to do, and it's only through practice will you find that you can use these confidently. My advice would be to keep little phrases in your back pocket for when you're writing, so you know, well, I'm always going to say in whatever I do, si j'étais riche, if I was rich. And it doesn't matter what topic you were talking about, you could probably get that in somewhere in one of the bullet points. And then you know the next thing you're going to use is the conditional tense, and you know your ending for that. Well, I've already used it in j'étais, it's AIS. I'm just adding it onto an infinitive or one of those stems. As an extension, there is actually alternative ways of forming if clauses in French that you might want to use. We're only going to look at one, and all that does is involve a slightly different order to what we saw at the start. So you can go conditional plus C plus the imperfect. Je serais moche si j'avais 2 nez. I would be ugly if I had 2 noses. Same rules on the grammar, same rules in forming the tense, it's just a slightly different order. If you followed this video and you managed to be able to get these into your text and you're writing at GCSE, they are real indicators of higher level, and definitely people who are after grade 7, 8 and 9 should be aiming to use these sentences every time they do a writing, because they show great complexity and a great understanding of French. Well done, guys.